Welcome back into another episode of Where the Game Lives On, the official podcast of the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. I hope I hit record on everything. Not even in place. All right. Welcome back into another episode of Where the Game Lives On, the official podcast of the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. We're sitting here, day of release, November 13th, 2024, well into season 3. Taylor Frederich joining me for another edition of Where the Game Lives On.
Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely. Glad to. Lots of things going on around the sports world. We'll jump right into it. Kansas City Chiefs on Sunday with a tremendous win over the Denver Broncos. Fourth quarter, the clock management, whatever you want to call it, didn't really fall their way. Denver has the ball late, goes for a last-second field goal. Chiefs block it. Craziest ending to a regular season game so far this year.
Certainly was. All the odds stacked against them this week, but yet again they found a way to win, and I think we kind of talked about it a couple weeks ago. It's going to take a near perfect effort for somebody to beat them, and nobody's been able to do that yet. Denver falls one play short in doing it this past weekend. So credit to Leo Chanel on getting through the line and getting that block. So
what did you make of the play itself?
Certainly didn't think it was going to happen. I mean, I kind of hate to say it, but in situations like that, I'm certainly an internal pessimist in terms of there's no way anything's going to go right in this situation. And that guy's, that lineman seemed to be exposed all game long and for several weeks, even in the past. So, again, credit to the special teams for making a play whenever the offense and the defense, didn't really make their, plays whenever they needed to in some senses.
I wouldn't call you a pessimist in that situation. I would say most people think that there's very little hope on like a 35-yard field goal.
It's a chip shot, and I remember turning to my wife and saying, this is a chip shot in college. It's let alone for these guys in the pros. So man, obviously did not see it coming, but hey, it feels good to be 9-0 heading into week 11.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they have their hands full coming up. You got the Buffalo Bills. Is that on the road or is that at Arrowhead?
In Buffalo.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting. Obviously, we're talking about a game in November. Weather's going to play a little bit of a factor, more than likely. Bills have just been playing well. Didn't get out to the fastest start comparatively to years past, but they're definitely clicking now. Defense, they are. Defense looks good too. It's just going to be, like you said, it's going to take anybody's best effort, but Bills are capable of beating them.
The Bills Mafia is going to be out in the masses like they always are, but especially with, 2-time defending champions coming back to town. Obviously, the Chiefs have kind of had their number, the 13-second game. All these different things throughout the year, or throughout the years in Mahomes' career.
Yeah.
The Chiefs are going to have a target on their back always, but we're right now in kind of the point in the league that teams are starting to separate each, from themselves.
Absolutely.
So we kind of know the top and bottom tier of the league, and two top teams, in the league that are facing this Sunday.
What do you make of Mahomes' play really this year? I mean, obviously, I think there's only so much you can say considering that he's starting for a 9-0 team. And I think another aspect of it is just the fact that his standard is held higher than just about anybody ever, let alone, just in the league right now. But I've just found his play a little, I don't know what word I'm trying to use.
Lackluster.
Lackluster, yes, but lackadaisical more so.
Sure.
It just seems like there's not a ton of, just like, he's not super
the spark.
urgent.
Yeah, it seems like the spark's kind of missing.
Yeah,
it kind of does. But they're doing enough. He's doing enough to get by. Whether it's one thing that I've seen a lot this year out of him, that I haven't seen a whole lot in the past, is third down running the football. He's bailed them out a lot on his on the ground game this year.
Yeah.
Which that hasn't really been like that a lot in the past. So that's really about the only thing offensively, that I can say he's looked explosive. There have been bits and pieces of it at times, but I will say something. I don't want to say something's off because they're 9-0, but he missed Kelsey in the back of an end zone wide open last week. That never happens, Right. So I see what you're saying, and I agree. It does seem like offensively they're just they're missing something. And I saw yesterday that Pacheco is back practicing, so maybe that's the spark that they need moving forward.
Yeah, and I definitely think that sure, Mahomes' play hasn't been top tier, in terms of his retrospect. But I look at the offense in general, and it's like this is probably one of the more balanced offensive teams under his helm.
Sure.
I mean, they're running the ball very well. They have, very talented receivers on the outside. Travis Kelce hasn't quite had the numbers he usually does, but he's Travis Kelce. Some things don't change. So I wonder, and teams are very guilty of this. It's just not common that we see it with the Chiefs. I wonder if they're just guilty of playing to their competition sometimes.
Certainly could. Yeah. I mean, and right now they're seemingly better than everybody. So again, it seems like every game they're kind of playing down, down to that competition and that aspect. And, I don't know what it is. I mean, could it be as simple as, the addition of getting Pacheco back, or is it going to take somebody, is it going to take just a week like playing Buffalo? What do you think happens this weekend?
Well, I definitely think that you have a very, very, it's a coin toss game in my book. Nobody's going in there. The Chiefs aren't going to get embarrassed. They're not going to go into Buffalo and have a blowout win. Regardless, I think it's a one possession game.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, and it seems as if in Mahomes' career, and again, certainly not saying it'd be a blowout this week, but it seems like every single game it's just close down to the wire, whether it's the ball in his hands or they score a field goal and put it in their hand, and put it up to the defense to win or whatever it is. Everything seems close, so I agree. I'm sure we're going to see another tight one this weekend.
If we see multiple turnovers from the Chiefs, which first and foremost starts with Patrick Mahomes, but if we see multiple turnovers from the Chiefs, I think they get beat. If they take care of the ball, I think it's a matter of who has the ball last. And that being said, I would take the Chiefs at that point because they just have shown that, excluding this past weekend, they have good clock management. They're able to, they possess the ball for a good period of time. And at times, their defense can get it back to them really quick.
And Buffalo started to kind of fly around this past weekend. That defense against Indianapolis, granted it is Indianapolis, they were defensively. They created turnovers. They had a lot of tip balls. They had, their defensive backs were really kind of starting to turn on. So the Chiefs are going to have their hands full, and they're going to have it full the rest of the year. Again, it's a tough league, so can't take a week off.
Yeah, they've got several tough games. Obviously, we've been breaking down the upcoming matchup with the Bills. You still have to face the Chargers one more time. On top of that, you have the Texans, you have the Broncos one more time, and the Steelers.
Tough. I mean, those are all really tough games. John Harborough's got the Chargers, kind of clicking out there right now.
Yeah.
Obviously, what's happening in Pittsburgh this year, I'll be the first to admit. I did not see. I remember you and I having this conversation about who are we going to start? Who are you going to start? Russell Wilson, or Justin Fields?
Yeah.
So, that one's, big surprise. Obviously, I think Houston's going to get more healthy as the year goes on. So you've got a tough December ahead of you. So you gotta win these games, and you gotta win the ones in between, especially.
Yeah, absolutely. The Bills will be tough this week. There's very winnable games there, but down the stretch, you end with Texans, Steelers, Broncos to finish the season. That's going to be tough. I do like just kind of focusing in on the Steelers a little bit. I do like how the Chiefs match up against them. The down playability, the downfield plays for the Steelers, kind of like everybody's talking about like the Russ 50-50 balls right now.
Right.
I think if they're matched up against a team with elite DBs, they're in trouble, really. So I think the Chiefs, I think that they match up against the Steelers well. Other than that, though, that's 3 tough games to win back to back to back there.
right around the holidays. And I think that's a stretch too, that if I remember right, without looking at the schedule, they've got like, I think those 3 games or 4 games are like in a very, very, very short amount of time.
Correct.
Like they play on Christmas Day, and I think maybe the Sunday before that. So that's like a 2 or 3 day gap. And then you're playing again, like maybe Monday. I don't know. It's something kind of crazy, but a quick turnaround in terms of the amount of games in a short 15-day window or whatever it is. So
absolutely,
that's going to be tough for them.
I'm not sure. I'm not looking at a calendar here. They play on the 15th with the Browns, and then they go the 21st, which is 6 days instead of 7. And then from the Texans to Steelers, they play 21st and then the 25th. So that's literally like back to back. That's like Sunday, Thursday.
Yeah, that's a game on a Sunday, Saturday, and then Wednesday. So that's 3 games in, basically 12, 12 days, 13 days, whatever it is.
Yeah, and then you finish up with the Broncos right there after the first of the year. So
that's a lot of games. I mean, in a short period of time, again, whenever you have just the, you're around the holidays, you just kind of have the outside distractions that could become a problem as well. So, hopefully the team maintains focus, but as long as they keep chalking wins up and the loss column stays flawless, I can't imagine them like losing focus and not necessarily being locked into that. So long winning streak.
Yeah, of course. It would be cool to be having that conversation where you're getting down to, week 16, 17, the regular season. It's like, do we rest people? Do we really care about, if we, of course, you got to take it one game at a time.
Of course, you have to. And, I hope that that's a situation that we get to discuss. But again, right now they're certainly, have the targets on their back.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm looking at this schedule right here for the Chiefs, and all I can say is like, thank God for the holiday season.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Really, really looking forward to that whenever we get there for it. But not only will there be NFL games at that point, we're also going to have college football playoff, which it was a wild week in college football. Once again, there is so much parity this year. I don't know if it's the new conferences, if it's the new playoff structure, but there's just a lot more losing going on.
And we kind of knew was going to happen in terms of the discussion of the quote unquote outsiders looking in terms of, the 13, 14, 15 being a little bit even more louder than perhaps the 4 and 5 conversation has been in years past. And man, not only does that come into play, I think, no matter what, but this year especially, you're going to have obviously you're going to have several 2-loss teams, 3-loss teams in the, in the college football playoff. That SEC conference right now, they're just beating each other up internally. And I would hate to be one of the 12, 16 guys on the panel. They've got tough decisions to make.
Yeah, our good friend Missouri sports legend Gary Pinkel,
part of that panel. Hall of Famer Will Shields is on the committee as well. Really? So it's so some Missouri ties there. Yeah,
it will be interesting to see how it shapes up in terms of when we get closer to that. Obviously, conference champions play a key part of it. Right now, they just essentially project those out. But yeah, you're going to have, I think, very possibly 4 teams from the SEC with maybe 3 of them being 2-loss. Like, you could even see that. There's going to be a ton of parity. And there's nobody that I really feel. Who do you feel most confident with? Honestly.
Oh, like in the SEC or
across, like, this team is making the college football playoff and is a legit championship contender.
I don't think Oregon's going to make it at this point. I don't think that that I see them being out of it, but
FPI has them at like a 96% chance to make it.
That one's kind of tough.
But are they elite? Are they elite,
they squeaked out a win against a brilliant play calling situation against Ohio State.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, let's face it, that was as close of a down to the wire game. And, shout out Dan Lanning, for making that, making that call. So again, it doesn't seem like anybody is really running away with it. And again, you said here, and Kalen DeBoer at one time, people were kind of questioning, is this the guy for Alabama? Well, all of a sudden, Alabama kind of looked like Alabama against LSU, and Jalen Milroe looked really good last week. So all of a sudden, it's kind of back to back to it, and a lot of competitiveness up and down that those teams of 12.
Yeah, I would say I definitely had the most confidence. And it's hard for me to say as an Oklahoma fan, in Texas prior to the Georgia game. They looked the most solid, the most complete team prior to that game. That being said, they lost to Georgia, and now Georgia's kind of had a couple of bumps in the road here and there as well. So it really taints that loss a little bit for them. Genuinely, myself personally, if I had to put my money on one team, and we're just talking about this game that they lost, but the Ohio State Buckeyes seem like the most championship contending level roster to this point. That's just because we know Oregon can score points.
Yep.
Oregon has tons of athletes on the field on offense and defense, but when it comes down to winning games in the playoff, I don't know. I just have trouble closing that gap for Oregon.
Penn State is not not an easy environment to play in. Ohio State. They beat them. How bad did Ohio State beat Penn State a couple weeks?
It was
ago?
close.
Yeah,
it came down to.
But still, I mean, a win's a win whenever you're on the road in Penn State. At Penn State.
Yeah.
So, that's all of a sudden. Let's face it. If all of a sudden Ohio State and Oregon and that game goes a little bit differently and Ohio State beats them, Ohio State's probably sitting here undefeated, and we're going, okay, this is the this is the team.
But you have that parity. You have the teams having trouble staying undefeated. We may get to the end of the season and have one undefeated team.
Yep,
if
possibly.
That. Who's at the top of the ACC right now? SMU.
Yeah.
Only undefeated team in conference play. They're at the top of the ACC.
And Miami was obviously playing really well, in the past several weeks, and then they lay a complete egg, this past weekend. So it's going to be really exciting around the playoffs, the buys, the on-campus games, everything around it. I'm excited to see everything's going to pan out.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting here because we are essentially coming down the stretch. Most teams have 3, maybe 4 in some cases games, depending on when they've had buys. So it's really going to get interesting here quick. I don't want to talk about this, but this is the official podcast of the Missouri Sports Hall of Fame. I don't agree with this statement, but do you believe the Mizzou Tigers still have a path to the playoff?
No, to answer the question,
All right.
I don't. And it's my father-in-law texted me before the game started on Saturday against Oklahoma, and he, asked about Brady Cook's situation.
Yeah.
And my response to him was something along the lines of, I don't think he's out for the year. However, since they are eliminated from the playoffs, they might shut him down. They might shut him down. I don't know. And again, I just kind of said that, who knows? And again, this was before the Oklahoma win. They beat Oklahoma, and then I hear him on ESPN or whatever it was on saying if Mizzou wins out, they've got like a 68% chance of getting in the college football playoff.
Yeah.
I don't see how that's possible. I mean, I do not see how that's possible. And I mean, I'm sure there's some kind of way that, certain teams would have to lose to certain teams, and this team would have to be in the SEC title game and perhaps beat this team, or whatever it is. I don't see a path for it. I mean, you're playing, who do you have left? South Carolina. You have Arkansas,
Mississippi State,
which, I mean, Mississippi State's really, really poor this year. I mean, So that certainly doesn't do anything for your strength of schedule, or that win's not going to impress anybody. But you do beat South Carolina. You do, you do beat Arkansas, and all of a sudden, I mean, I guess you're sitting there with what are you, 10-3 or
10-2? Yeah.
Texas. They lost Texas A&M, Alabama.
That's it.
Is that it?
Yeah. Which we're sitting here saying,
but then you can have like an Ole Miss team who's a 2-loss.
Yeah.
Tennessee could be a 2-loss team.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden, and I mean, and you look at it like Mizzou's losses, like I was just saying about, Alabama is never really a bad loss, in terms of just kind of who you're playing. And look, A&M came on really, really strong, and so again, not bad losses. And, Alabama, and the Alabamas of the world do have bad losses. They've got a Vanderbilt loss on their resume. What does the selection committee think about that? Is that going to hinder, especially if they don't get to a title game?
Yeah, I think that first and foremost, a loss is without a doubt putting them out of the college football playoff conversation.
No question.
It's a stretch right now with 2 losses. That being said, we're sitting here saying there will be multiple 2-loss teams that get in. First and foremost, they have to beat South Carolina. That game is on the road. That's a very losable game for them. South Carolina, a very solid ranked squad, by the way. If they do win out, my prediction would be that they're going to be sitting there in that group of teams that are like first 4 out.
Yep.
That's exactly where they're going to be. And I think the reason that will be the case is, I don't know if you chalk it up to the eye test or whatever analytic you want to. I don't think it's the fact that they lost 2 bad teams. I think it will be the fact of the nature of how they lost those games. They lose huge in a game to A&M that everybody thought they would be competitive. And then in Tuscaloosa, very, very tough environment, but you don't even score a touchdown there. Of course, Brady Cook gets hurt. That's one thing too. But I think in the eye test, you see Missouri's strength of schedule, and you say the only time they played solid teams, they got throttled.
Yep.
Yeah.
I was about to say, and like the opposite of that is they played well whenever they were playing the Buffaloes of the world. And, and the Boston College.
Thought Boston College was really good.
Exactly.
Maybe not.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like unfortunately, like, that's going to be something that I'm sure the committee will look at and be like, hey, that's a big time deciding factor in terms of them being left out. Look, I said it before. I wish they would find a path to get in, but I don't see it happening.
They have to win out. There's no doubt about that. I mean, they've beaten Vandy, who is not a terrible team. Vandy still has a path to the playoff, I think, themselves. But in terms of...
Who did South Carolina beat at night a couple weeks ago? Somebody really good.
Not Bama.
No.
Bama. You are correct. It was Tennessee. No.
I remember who they played. I remember that game was absolutely bumping on. I mean, I remember that South Carolina crowd was just... It was nuts.
Yeah. I don't see it.
I don't know. Either way, Mizzou, it's obviously they're going to have to win out, and it's going to take a tremendous effort to get there. But
A&M.
Yep.
Was it A&M?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Of course, South Carolina, I think extremely underrated team, but they're playing in the SEC. They've got losses to Bama, Ole Miss. They've also got a loss to LSU. So lost to 3 solid squads there. I don't even know. It's 3 losses. So they'll be bowl eligible at least, but they're trying to basically just play, crash the dance at this point a little bit. And
hey, another quick shout out, kind of switching gears here, although I don't know a whole lot about it. Hand up, haven't paid a tremendous amount of attention to it, but shout out to Missouri State football. Yeah. I mean, Missouri State football here in Springfield, I think they just won like 8 in a row, maybe. Does that sound right?
That does sound right.
Something like that. But hey, shout out to to Missouri State football, Corey Riggs and the crew over there.
Yeah, no, seriously. They're second, I think, in the Missouri Valley currently, which is easily the top conference in the Division I AA, FCS, whatever you call it. But no, that's very interesting. I was having a conversation with somebody just this past week about that. I think that they've been competitive. They've had really solid teams here in recent years. It's kind of been up and down, but I think that they're doing a good job recruiting. I think they're starting to get some recruits in who are kind of Division I level recruits.
It's going to help. I mean, certainly winning a bunch of games, can always attract recruits, attract the people that you want, around your program. So wish them nothing but the best moving forward.
Yeah, and you're correct. It is 8 in a row to this point. They've got
pretty good
North Dakota State and South Dakota State coming up. So that's kind of are they a contender? Are they a pretender stretch? I would say right there. Play at 2:30 this coming Saturday against North Dakota State. That'll be a true testament for them. Obviously, you're talking about two other teams that are capable of going up to the FBS ranks. Geographically, probably is what holds them back more than anything from that.
Yep.
But yeah, regardless of how those two games go, generally speaking, you have a handful of teams from the Missouri Valley that make that Division II playoff. So as long as you can get in, anything can happen.
Could be fun to watch them.
I'm not somebody either that I don't watch them closely enough to know, like, man, do they have an elite level quarterback right now? Is it just really solid team play, all aspects of the game? I have no idea, but obviously, historically, Missouri State, won't lie, everybody knows it. It's a basketball school. Some people consider it a baseball school. Obviously, who knows? Their future is up in the air. It could be anything.
Never know with the conference change. You never know how the landscape of a program can change in some short years of success.
I will say this. I've gotten a little used to it because you've seen them play in these, whatever you want to call them, tune up, they've been on the field with an Arkansas and given them, 3 really tough quarters, or, they've played a Tulsa or an OU or something like that. It will be more interesting, though, to see them traveling to USC to open up the season, playing against some blue blood programs,
I saw they were opening USC, I think, next year, and then somebody else big time the following year even that I saw them. But you're right. That's, getting out there on those big stages can obviously be a test to your program. Nobody, quote unquote, expects you to win those kind of games. But if you can go out there and be competitive against some of those, some of those blue chip programs out there, that's kind of what you're aiming for, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Their only loss so far this year coming to Ball State, who is currently, I think they're newly an FBS school, but they are an FBS school. I remember comments back after they were defeated by them. The head coach at Ball State said, if you look at that roster, that is an FBS caliber roster. Which is just all the more promising, I guess. It's going to be a time of transition. They're obviously going to be playing in a conference with other teams that could they get beat by a North Dakota State? I'm sure. You know what I mean? But it's just a different level. Is all there is to it.
Yep, absolutely. And like we said, we'll see what happens to them. We obviously wish them nothing but the best moving forward this year. Hope you keep chalking up wins and again, move along to the playoffs and do something special. Yeah,
maybe some sweet stadium upgrades too.
Yeah, here we go.
If you've made it this far in the episode, thanks so much for joining us. New episodes of Where the Game Lives On every Wednesday, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Stay up to date with everything going on at the Hall of Fame. We'll have some links in the podcast description below. We have updates always coming out across our social media platforms. Those are also linked in the podcast description below. Taylor, thanks for joining us. As always, we greatly appreciate it.
Yep, you bet. Always enjoy doing it, man.
Yep, and we will see you next time on another episode of Where the Game Lives On.